Hello dear friends, and welcome back to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. Today we're diving into a moment that mesmerized Turkish media and sent fans into overdrive. After months of whispers, sidelong glances, and speculative headlines, Sinem Ünsal finally spoke, not from a carefully staged set or a glossy magazine spread, but in the most unpredictable arena of them all, an international airport, where arrivals and departures never travel alone. They bring questions with them. For weeks that blended into months, the conversation never seemed to stop. Was there a quiet ceremony? Were the rings kept hidden in pockets instead of on fingers? Had Sinem and Ozan Akbaba turned a private vow into a secret truth? Every solo appearance fueled more theories, every carefully cropped photo birthed a new narrative. Sinem stayed silent through it all, letting the speculation swirl and crash like waves on a breakwater she refused to rebuild. But this time, circumstance shifted the ground beneath her feet. She stepped into the terminal wearing something simple and beautifully understated, the kind of look that says confidence without insisting on it. Still, the calm on the surface hinted at currents below. As she reached the automatic doors, a sudden constellation of flashes lit up the polished floors. Paparazzi surged, reporters leaned forward, microphones extended, and the air filled with the clamor of voices calling her name. Amid the chaos, she moved with a measured grace, a slight smile hovering, not quite effortless, not quite fixed. It was the face of someone who knows that composure is a language. The refrain had been repeating online for ages. Sinem and Ozan had married in secret. It became the internet's favorite riddle. Friends, stylists, co-stars, everyone who stood near them in public was hoisted into the rumor mill. Fans parsed timelines, scrolled interviews, zoomed in on hands, and argued over the meaning of an uncaptioned photo. And then, with a corridor full of cameras as witness, the question finally crossed the boundary between rumor and reality. A reporter cut through the din with a blunt, clear query. "Did you and Ozan Akbaba get married?" The expectation, based on months of silence, was that Sinem would glide past, perhaps with a kind thank you, perhaps with no words at all. Instead, she stopped. She took a steadying breath, lifted her gaze, and let a thoughtful smile reshape her expression. When she spoke, her voice was even and assured, like someone stepping onto a stage she built herself. "I have kept quiet for a long time," she said, "and in that quiet, everyone wrote their own version of us. What I can tell you is simple: my life belongs to me, and nothing about it is decided without me." Not a denial. Not a straightforward confirmation. It was a statement of ownership. Elegant, deliberate, and immovably clear. She acknowledged the swirl without being pulled into it, and she placed the narrative firmly back into her own hands. Fans took that single moment and dressed it in 100 interpretations. Was it a yes wrapped in poetry? Was it a graceful pivot? Was it a declaration that she answers only to her own heart and her own timeline? While microphones bobbed and camera shutters snapped, the questions came in rapid succession. Are you and Ozan still together? Are you traveling abroad as a couple? Will we see you two stepping off the same flight? Sinem listened, then replied in a voice that didn't waver. "I know how curious everyone is. But sometimes the best thing is to let life unfold the way it wants to. My heart is in a good place. My life is in a good place. The rest will make itself known soon." She didn't trade mystery for clarity, but she offered a truth that felt warm to the touch. She didn't reduce herself to a headline. She crafted a message that insisted on context. The online reaction moved with the speed of electricity. Clips of her pause, her smile, her exact words ricocheted from account to account. People slowed the footage to study the shift in her eyes. Others compared her tone to previous interviews, tracing a pattern from silence to selectivity. The shift was unmistakable. Sinem had moved from using quiet as a shield to using language as a compass. Where she once gave nothing, she now offered just enough. And then there was Ozan. His last brief comment had already been making the rounds. "I prefer not to discuss my private life, but I'm happy." On its own, it sounded like a door gently closing. Paired with Sinem's airport remarks, it felt more like two people placing a boundary together, coordinated without being rehearsed. The narrative that emerged wasn't a confession. It was a common stance. A relationship steward on their terms, with room for the public to look without being invited to step inside. A source described as close to Sinem suggested that changes are coming for her, not just in matters of the heart, but in the choices she'll make next on screen and off it. According to this person, she plans every reveal with care. She chooses the timing. She protects what brings her joy. If you look closely, that perspective was already present at the airport. When she chose to pause, when she chose to answer, when she chose her words, she made it clear that control wasn't an accident. It was the point. The airport sighting, then, became more than a travel moment. Think of it as a threshold, a hinge between silence and articulation. In the swirl of luggage and schedules, in the sterile light and the near-constant echo, she placed a marker. Whether it was the preface to a larger statement, a carefully measured misdirection, or the soft launch of news already known to their closest circle, it changed the way this story will be told. If there is a new chapter opening, it will open at their pace, in their language, with their hand on the latch. It's worth noticing how carefully both stars have learned to move within attention's gravity. Sinem has always projected a brightness that reads as natural on camera, but the last year taught her a secondary skill, the art of withholding without seeming evasive. Ozan, meanwhile, has long favored privacy that doesn't come across as secrecy, just preference. Coupled, those traits form a quiet strategy. They refuse to be rushed, yet they don't inflame curiosity just for the thrill of it. Instead, they guide it. Revisit the airport images and you might see how intention shows itself in tiny gestures. The way she straightened the strap of her bag before she spoke. The way she glanced at the floor and then back at the reporters as if counting the beat of a song only she could hear. Even the outfit, minimal but attentive to detail, sent a message: everything has been considered, even what appears effortless. And when she said, "My life belongs to me," it landed like a thesis. If you place Sinem's words alongside Ozan's, a shared theme glows through. We may or may not learn about dates and details, but we are often told enough about the feeling. Happy. Good place. Soon. Each phrase invites speculation while refusing to feed it. It's like watching a set being lit by a dimmer, not a switch. The shape is becoming visible, but the edges are still soft. To some, this restraint is frustrating. To others, it's a reminder that public love can be generous without being porous. A moment like this blurs borders. An airport might be the most public of spaces, yet in those few minutes, Sinem created a small private room inside it, filled with the tone and meaning she chose. Cameras were there, but control was hers. What happens next? If the source whispering about significant shifts is right, we might soon see announcements that reframe both their personal narrative and their professional calendars. Maybe a project that places them closer to each other geographically. Maybe a schedule that makes travel together less of a rarity. Maybe a decision that requires returning to the same conversation later with more to say. Or maybe the airport moment was the statement, the clarifying breath that made the months of silence make sense. What's undeniable is that Sinem changed the tempo. She took the rhythm everyone else tried to conduct and kept the beat herself. She reminded the industry and her fans of a simple but potent truth. When a person who has stayed silent finally chooses to speak, the words draw their strength not just from content but from timing. In that respect, she was masterful. Consider the alternatives she sidestepped. She could have denied everything outright, and the denial would have sparked even louder debates. She could have confirmed it all, and some would have accused her of headline hunting. Instead, she protected what mattered, shared what she was comfortable with, and left enough space for hope to breathe. It wasn't just media management. It was personality made visible. As for Ozan, his quiet parallel message served as a stabilizer. Happiness unadorned. Privacy without apology. It's a balance that can be difficult to sustain in an environment that rewards the dramatic reveal. Yet both of them leaned into it with the kind of certainty that comes from experience. The understanding that life lived with intention leaves fewer cracks for chaos to slip through. The final image from the terminal shows Sinem turning toward her gate. The crowd thins. The flashes soften. A last question floats behind her, then fades. She doesn't rush. She doesn't look back. If you concentrate, you can almost hear the sound of a page being turned. So did she confirm a secret marriage to Ozan Akbaba? Did she artfully sidestep the trap of a yes or no? Or did she give us something more valuable than either option, a glimpse of how she plans to steer the story from here on out? Depending on where you stand, any of those answers could be right, and that might be the smartest part of all. From here, the conversation belongs to the audience again. Some will celebrate what they read between the lines. Others will wait for an official reveal, a photo, a ring, an announcement. And many will come to appreciate what she modeled at that terminal. That dignity can live next to curiosity, that grace can walk hand in hand with scrutiny, and that sometimes the most powerful statement is the one that leaves room for the future. Thank you for joining this deep dive. Tell us in the comments what you think you heard in Sinem's words. Was it confirmation, a careful redirection, or the first step in a controlled unveiling? And if you crave every beat of this evolving story, make sure you subscribe, tap like, and ring the bell so you don't miss what comes next. Keep watching Turkish Spotlight Secrets. We always bring you what matters, when it matters, and exactly how it should be told.